Vera is, in my opinion, a climate heroine. Come on up, Vera. I met Vera through Temple Shir Shalom, and she joined immediately the green team we started to try and lower the carbon footprint and save money at our temple. And she stepped up when the job got too big, because we have beautiful grounds, those of you who know the synagogue, and they really need some love. And Vera stepped up to work with people who get their fingernails dirty and go shopping for plants and spread mulch, and just amazing. Part of why I admire Vera is I taught a class for University of Miami called Climate Conversations 101. Deb gave a good introduction. It's designed for lay people. And Vera, I twisted Vera's arm, but she said, sure, I'll come. And she participated so actively and then stepped up into the role with the Green Team. So I have here an autographed copy of a book that we discussed. Kim Leacock signed this directly to you, so in appreciation of what you've done. And also, I think that most of you are here because Vera twisted your arms. So, tonight, there are a lot of topics I talk about. I talk about hurricanes, I talk about heat, I talk about sea level rise, I talk about solutions, I talk about how to communicate the climate crisis to your friends and family. But when I thought about Gainesville, I created a program just for us. And I'm calling it, Is It Hot in Here or Is It Me? Because I come from Miami, from South Miami, where I lived for 44 years, and it's pretty hot in Miami. But I've only been here 2 years, and I gotta tell you, the heat in my first summer knocked me flat on the floor. So I thought, let's look at what heat is and how that relates to the climate. So without further ado, okay, so you know that I've been teaching on Zoom for the past year and a half. So it's been a while since I actually did this. There we go. So I use this for the starting slide. I want to point your attention to the light blue line just over Earth. This is Earth seen from outer space. And the light blue line is the theme I use on my background because I want you to tune in to the fact that that's our atmosphere. It's got breathable air for 6 miles. It ends about 10 miles up, and yes, I know all these rich people are going on 50 and 60 miles, but the part that matters to us is that thin blue line surrounding our planet. And that little bright spot right in the middle, that's the sun coming up over Earth. And I remember July 20th, 1969. I wonder how many people here are old enough to, okay, remember where you were? I was sitting in a patio in Guatemala on a college project, looking at the moon. It was a full moon, and Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on that full moon, and I was staring at it. I'm holding a glass full of Cinzano, and it's melting in my hand because I'm frozen with amazement at what we were doing. I remember that because there is no planet B. This is it. This is plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So just to bear that in mind and kind of set the stage for, this is really important for us. So a little bit of levity. Some of what I'm going to do tonight may depress you or sadden you. Some of you already know it, so it'll just make it worse. I'm looking at my friend Deb. We cheer. Fortunately, we haven't hit low at the same time, so we kind of cheer each other up. We will end on a positive note. There is hope. There are solutions. You are the Democratic Women's Club of Gainesville. You are the best audience I could possibly be talking to because you get it. We have to get active at a political level, but a lot of people don't get it. And so I'm going to hope to give you some information and inspiration for bringing people into your fold. Before I introduce you to High Springs Ellen Buxtell, who's a fairly well-known folk singer-songwriter, I do want to pause, put in parentheses. I'm a volunteer teacher. I do dozens of these programs, and it is my joy and passion to do that. I don't collect money. And I don't even ask you to donate to the group that's supporting it. But if I were passing a hat, here's what I want you to put in the hat at the end of the program. I want you to take something you learned tonight that stunned you or shocked you or startled you or pleased you and share it. Or make a commitment to do something you're not already doing, and everyone in this room has already played school, I know that. So maybe there's something more you want to do. 72% of Americans acknowledge climate change, global warming. 72% of Americans. 47% talk about it, less than half. I want you to go talk about it. I want you to do what Vera did. She took the class, and I made the same pass the hat talk to the class, and she said, I have a group that should hear you talk. I want you to do that too. So that's my pass that, so I pass the hat talk. So this is my friend Ellen Buxtell. And she has a really cute song on YouTube, you can Google it, and I see there are gentlemen in the audience, but perhaps you have women of a certain age in your lives, so let's hear her sing.
Is it hot in here, or is it me?
Oh dear.
My family thinks I'm crazy as can be. But my thermostat is broken, feels like 100 degrees, and I can hear.
I can't do that. Okay, it's very short. She's saying, is it hot in here or is it me? My thermostat is broken. It feels like 103. Is it hot in here or is it me? And she goes on, and it's really about her female thermostat, but I'm going to talk about the Earth thermostat. And that was really interesting because the sound came out of the projector and not my computer. Very strange. Okay. Very good. So real basic climate science I'd like to touch. I'm sure you already know this, but just so that it's consolidated, we're all starting with the same thing. That little thin blue line that you can see surrounds the planet, and that is a blanket. That keeps heat in. The sun sends rays down, and as ultraviolet, and we turn it into infrared, and it kind of warms our atmosphere. And most of that radiation is absorbed by the Earth and warms us up, and then the extra energy is radiated out into space in the form of infrared waves. But what's happening is some of it is trapped by our atmosphere. That's good, we want that. That's what keeps us from freezing to death in outer space. But, that's Al Gore speaking, come back. While we increase carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and there are other gases that trap heat, but I'm just going to deal with carbon dioxide, CO2 today, more and more of that is being trapped. And what's really amazing to me, if I picture a box of air with 1 million parts of air in it, the parts per million that are carbon dioxide has never in 800,000 years gone over 270 or 280 parts per million. So if you picture little black dots in a box of air, it's not very much. Carbon dioxide is less than 0.04% of the air we're breathing. We need it in the, to keep us warm, but it's not important for our respiration. We breathe mostly nitrogen and some oxygen. As those parts per million go up, temperature goes up. And so I wonder if you want to just take, I call it a WAG, a wild ass guess, as to what the current parts per million are last month in our atmosphere. We're way over 300 and 350. Anybody want to guess? Just raise your hand or shout it out. 600? Well, we're not that bad. We'd be dead. Yeah, okay. 400? Okay, 400 is pretty close. We're at 418 last month. And climbing. You'll hear a phrase when you're reading about climate science and the climate called business as usual. Business as usual has us reaching 500 parts per million within this century. That is cataclysmic, catastrophic. If you think we got problems now with hurricanes, floods, heat, fires, droughts, climate migration, you ain't seen nothing yet. That'll be a walk in the park. We must stop burning fossil fuels. We must stop throwing carbon dioxide into the air. It's the most imperative thing we can do. There's lots of things we can do, but that's the most important. Okay, so Al Gore asks 3 questions when we do these short programs. Must we change? Can we change? Will we change? And I'm going to build the case for each of those as we go. I want you to remember that there is no living plant, animal, or human who has had time to evolve to manage the accelerated changes we're having right now in temperature, rain, floods, droughts, fires, food supplies, and water supplies. We've had a lot of changes over time, of course, but not this rapidly. So, here's what we're doing. This is global. I actually have a little song to sing. I try to put a little bit of levity into these because it's very, very, very depressing. So I learned this in Girl Scouts. It's a 3-part song. I'm going to sing the fun part that applies to climate. It says, don't chuck your monkey my backyard, my backyard, my backyard. Don't chuck your monkey my backyard. I know the Girl Scout leaders here. My backyard's full. So we are chucking 152 million tons of man-made muck into our atmosphere like it's an open sewer. Remember that thin blue shell? That's what we're polluting. If you have a swimming pool and everybody who came into that swimming pool peed in it, that's my image. Okay. Oh, that's a good image. So you like that one. Okay. There are many, many sources of global warming pollution, but the largest source is the burning of fossil fuels. And I looked at this chart, and I was born in 1949. So if you look at the chart, back in 1850, we were burning coal since 1750, the birth of the Industrial Revolution and the steam engine. So we were burning coal, and like cities were suffering. London suffered, Coals to Newcastle suffered, but it wasn't very dramatic until about after World War II. So I was born in 1949. I didn't know any of this was going on. My parents didn't know any of this was going on. And I really enjoyed what burning all this fuel did for me. We had road trips. We drove across the country. We went camping. My parents bought an air conditioner for their bedroom, and all 7 of us slept on the floor, and it was really hot in Miami. And the joy and the convenience of plastic. We used to do our garbage in paper bags, and they would leak. And then we had plastic bags. I mean, it was wonderful. Better living through oil and gas and plastics. So I'm a little embarrassed to tell you, I've been a Life Girl Scout, I still am. I had a Girl Scout troop. I'm very pleased about that. I kind of told somebody today, the Girl Scout law means more to me than the 10 Commandments, which is kind of weird, but I learned it better. I'm embarrassed to admit that when I took my Girl Scout troop camping, because it was so easy, we didn't bring mess kits. We brought disposables. Awful. I look back now and I am ashamed, but I didn't know. It was cheap, it was easy, and the best part was nobody bitched about washing the dishes. You remember, how many people were Girl Scout or Scout leaders here? Yeah, I see the heads going up and down. You know, the bucket with the soap and then the rinse and then the cloth. So there's a lot of sources of where it's coming from, but burning fossil fuels is the biggest one. I want to give you a little more science, a little more data, and see if this is new information for you. We're looking only at the northern hemisphere. Let me anchor you to the blue, which is the cooler than average days in a decade, well, 3 decades. This is 1951 to 1980. Remember, we're already warming. You saw when I was born and it started to go up, but for purposes of the slide, we're giving a base scenario of 1951 to 1980. So those of us born in that period had the best weather we're ever going to have. Your grandchildren will never have that kind of weather. So the white is average number of days. It's a bell curve, like when you took an exam in school. You understand how that works. And the red is warmer than average days. So that is our baseline scenario. And I'm going to color it in green so that you can watch what happens over decades. So we're ending in 1980, and now we're going to 1990 to 2000. Anybody, what do you see that startles you? The red. We have something new. We have something called extreme heat days, which Gainesville has. Extreme heat days are when the heat index exceeds 100 degrees, where temperature's over 90 and the humidity is high. And you notice what happened to the colder than average days? This is why people are moving to Canada. They want to freeze to death, but it's not so cold as it used to be. Let's move forward another decade.
Oh my.
This is where we are. It is hot in here. It isn't me. cooler than average, and an extreme number of too hot days. Those are days where if you're over 65, it is too hot to go outside. And if you do go outside because you garden or you bike or you walk, please, please, please be careful. Hydrate, figure out how to maybe carry some ice with you, keep your body temperature low. Heat kills. It kills us by destroying our organs, never mind heat stroke and heat exhaustion. So just 22% of our land cover is now too hot. And many, many countries, as you're reading about, are simply too hot to even think about. It makes gains don't look good. So watch this animation and watch the clock at the bottom. I'll replay it if I can get it to do that because it's going fast. This is a NASA animation of the planet's heat. Now the reason it looks like it's breathing is summer, winter. But watch what's happening. Obviously yellow is hot, red is very hot. Blue is cooler. And here we are, 2019. Let me just play it again, if I can. Will you do it again, baby? Please? No. There we go. So it wasn't too bad in the 1900s. A cool planet. That's the kind of planet we were evolved to live in. Plants, animals. As we get into our decade, the 2019 temperatures were second only to 2016. The past 5 years have been the warmest in the last 140 years. So it's really hot. Okay, so that leads to the question, so what? So what if it's getting hotter? We have air conditioning, you know, we have cold water. So let's take a look. Well, one impact of the heat is that the oceans, which absorb most of the heat, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, when water gets warm, it expands. So sea level rise around the world is up because the ocean is up. And anybody have connections to South Florida or came from there? Okay, so that's not so many people. So I won't talk too much about it, but South Florida gets a triple whammy in addition to the sea level rise from thermal expansion. But that's not today's program. That could be another program. So thermal expansion. The heat makes the hurricanes worse. The heat messes with the Gulf Stream and the jet stream, which slows down the storm's speed. Hurricane Andrew whizzed through my neighborhood overnight. Hurricane Dorian sat on the Bahamas for days. Hurricane Harvey over Houston for days. It slows the change in the currents, is slowing them down. Warm water evaporates, more water vapor. Warm air holds more water vapor, and when it comes down, you'll see in another slide, it comes down bad. So we have they're stronger, they're slower, they're wetter, and they intensify faster. So if you look at a chart, again, I have a program on hurricanes, I'm glad to bring that to you, or to your friends or your family. We can track how hurricanes have intensified rapidly within 24 hours. If they gave you, when I was in Miami and I was 11, 12 years old, and we had Hurricane Betsy, I think it was, or maybe Donna, yeah, okay. If they gave you a weather forecast, it was going to be a category 2 or 3, and it was a category 2 or 3. Now if they give you category 1, 2, or 3, in 24 hours it could be a 5, and they're discussing how to create a category 6. I don't think it matters, 5 is already bad enough. Okay, more intense drought. The same warmth that creates evaporation sucks the water out of the land. So it dries out crops, dries out fields, and the way we do agriculture, industrial agriculture, is we are leaving the fields unplanted. So they cannot absorb water by having plants take it up, and the water that's in there is getting evaporated out. I have 2 sisters in California. I cannot tell you how badly I want them to move. It kills me. So, more tropical and backborne diseases, we're going to look at that. More heat-related illness and death. More allergies and asthma. Yes, we really enjoyed our comfortable lifestyle, and we still enjoy it, especially in the US. Our enjoyment of those fossil fuels, if we look at our contribution to what's in the atmosphere now, cumulative, because that's what counts, 3% of the world's population, us, has put 25% of the pollution up in the air. We have affected everyone around the world. Now, we're not the only guilty ones, and it's not, and once you walk away going, like Yom Kippur if you're Jewish, my fault, my fault, my fault. Don't take it all on. That belongs to the government and the business interests pulling the levers of the government, and that has been happening since basically 1980, and it has a lot to do with trade deals. So it isn't just us, and there's been a lot of disinformation campaigns, just as there were with tobacco harming people. So it's not just us, but if we are aware, A, we can change our behavior in tiny ways, and we can push those levers of government to listen to us, and that's why this group is so exciting for me to be talking to. So let's just see what's going on. Where does the heat go? Well, I'm showing you the oceans because land is 30% of the Earth's surface, but the oceans is 70%, and 93% of the heat that the Earth does not take up itself by land absorption goes into the ocean. So, ocean temperatures have gone nowhere but up since 1990. And we talked about this. When oceans are warm, they evaporate more moisture into the sky. And we're seeing rainfall that breaks all records. So I wrote this paragraph a few weeks ago. I was bored with all the wet weather. Remember, we had a week, like it felt like forever. It was raining. So this is my 10th rainy day, chilled, wrapped in a fleece blanket, curled on my couch. The room is dim, no sunlight coming through the shutters. Everything in the room is gray. The rain is pelting incessantly, loud on the windows. Alexa is chirping the next tornado alert. My bulldog whines with every thunderclap. It used to rain on schedule in Gainesville, an hour every summer afternoon. A clap or two of thunder, a downpour, a clearing sky. Another cup of ginger tea, I wonder, sighing. So if you think that was an anomaly, you'll see how many of them there are. The blue lines are just record-breaking precipitation anomalies, meaning more often than normal. There's a lot of damage to these, not just me being bored, stuck at home for 2 weeks. Those downpours destroyed $20 million worth of crops in Iowa. That's a lot of corn and wheat that we're not going to get to eat. And the heat is causing ice loss at the poles. And if you just look at 1979 at the top, we were somewhere around, still a lot, 50 billion metric tons. I can't even picture how much ice that is, but that's how much melted. But if you look at the years 2009 and to 2017, we're almost 235 billion metric tons of water. That water is adding to the thermal expansion, so it's increasing the sea level rise. So, East Coast, it's coming for you. We're good here, but you've got friends on the coast, I'm sure. Part of what's happening is that rises the sea level, so the heat is causing high sunny day, high tide flooding. Don't take my word for it. That red line is the sea level going up, and the blue line are the days of sunny day flooding. And I was on a webinar, they go in lockstep. I was on a webinar last Thursday with the mayor of St. Petersburg speaking, and he told us the same. Petersburg used to have 7 sunny day flooding events. 7, okay. If you have a house on the coast, maybe you can deal with 7 days of flooding. They are aiming at 60 to 70 days a year now. That is untenable. You're not going to live in a house where you've got to wade through salt water and the assorted pollution that comes with it. So I think Gainesville's a really good place to move to, and I think that is something for Gainesvillians to really give some thought to. Another parentheses, another pitch. If I were going to suggest something, those of you who want to take on one more thing, you might look at sitting in on the Citizens Climate Action Committee. It's a 1-year-old committee. Gainesville and Alachua have teamed up with it. It's a subset of the Joint Water and Energy Board, I think. They meet kind of once a month on Zoom, soon in person. You can be a fly on the wall, which is what I do. And they are trying to come up with a Citizens Climate Action Plan for Gainesville. We need one. And it isn't just for incoming refugees, which we are going to have. It's what happens when we have too much heat, when we have too much water. Didn't somebody say they were late because 39th Avenue was closed due to flooding? Somebody here said that. So that's just like the tip of what's going to be coming. We need a plan for that. We need to plan for all the septic tanks that are going to be polluting. We need to, there's a lot of things that need to be done, and they really want citizen input. And there's not very many people attending to it. So again, we're going to pass around. I don't know where it went to, if that's handling that or not. But if you'd like to be aware of what's going on, thank you very much. If you don't mind, just to keep it going, I will keep you posted on that, and when there is a meeting, I'll let you know when it is. So, okay, close parentheses. We talked about this. It's just a graphic of what happens with the same heat that evaporates more water from the ocean. It just takes more water from the land. Now, what happens? I hate this slide. The yellow is temperature and the orange is fires. It's completely correlated. California's already crossed the number of fires they have now than they did all year last year, and last year was hell. Hell. That's what it looks like. And just to keep cheering you up, climate change is a medical emergency. Now, again, we are fortunate, we are air conditioned, we are affluent enough to be comfortable, but the poor and the homeless are not. Many elderly cannot afford air conditioning or don't have air conditioning, or they live in places like the Pacific Northwest and Vancouver, British Columbia. They never needed air conditioning. It never got 115 degrees. That's just crazy. So, there are a lot of sudden deaths when you have heat waves like we have and people are not used to it. If you have cardiac or respiratory problems, asthma or COPD, you're in trouble. And we'll get to a slide about why extra. Mentally ill, and anybody with an outdoor job. And I bring ice water to the guy that cuts my yard and the ladies that weed my garden because it's hot out there. I love this. Look at Florida. Look at all the tropical diseases coming. Now, why would heat bring tropical diseases to us? What's going on? What do you think? Just throw out some ideas. Like, why?
Mosquitoes? Yeah, the vectors.
They're vectors right now. What do mosquitoes need? Water and heat. So if you've got more water and more heat, you've got more mosquitoes. It's increased heat and increased opportunity and longer breeding seasons. So there's some terrible diseases in there, but this is not a medical meeting. Don't really need to say anything more about COVID, except that we can expect another pandemic. The connection is not clear. Like, you can't just go climate change caused COVID, but the change in climate is changing because of human activities. So the dots to connect are deforestation, partly for clearing land to grow food for cows, and burning the forest so we can plant pasture. You're encroaching on areas where wild animals never had to deal with humans, so there's more human-animal interface, is one of them. Poverty, where people have to eat wild animals because they're hungry. And the third, and shocking to me, reason why we have more zoonotic, is the word for this kind of animal-borne disease, is the exotic wild animal trade. It's the 4th most lucrative black market, next to sex and drugs, and I can't remember the other one, maybe arms. On the planet, there's a lot of money to be made in shipping these animals, and they carry viruses. So, not their fault. And those are connected, not directly, that you can draw a straight line, but you can put dots to connect them. So, who here has allergies? Oh my God. All right, so I'm going to talk slower, because you want to hear this and you want to make plans for it. Your allergies are going to get worse. They're going to get worse because warm air holds more pollen, and more carbon dioxide encourages trees and flowers to bloom more, and their growing season are extended by as much as a month, so they're producing longer. So you have more and more pollen being produced because of the heat and the moisture in the air. So 20 years ago, if you had a cubic meter 3 by 3 by 3, and you counted how many grains of pollen were in it in the air, 8,455. That would be a fun job, don't you think? Predicted. Right, so if you're sneezing now and you triple the amount of pollen your face has to deal with, you want to think about that. You want to think about how do we do that. And you want to think about the actions we can take to stop the problem. We've got to stop the heat. Now, even if we stop burning oil and gas and coal right now, temperature's still going to go up because it's kind of baked into the system. But there are things we can do to bring the carbon dioxide down, and we know that will cool the planet. So you've got to really start thinking about not just yourself, because a bunch of us can move the needle, but we really have to move the levers of power. So look what happens if you'd like to go to Durham, North Carolina, where my niece lives, who has asthma. So I'm going to wrap it up before we go on to solutions. Let's just take a look at the impacts here, because I really threw a lot of things at you, and I appreciate your attention. You should know that if you add up all of the tax breaks, subsidies, and policy decisions baked into the United States laws, we are supporting and subsidizing the fossil fuel industry by $649 billion. $649 billion. That's our taxpayer money through policies, legislation, tax breaks for supporting the extraction industry. Imagine if those subsidies got shared with renewable energy, or if we stopped them altogether. Extraction would not be a cheap way to make a living. We have supported unknowingly what's been going on. So I just thought you should know that. And I can footnote if anybody's interested, I'm happy to share the footnotes on all of the data that I'm giving you. It's just a cash register, and I'll have to see what that's about. It's the cost of carbon, and we didn't touch on all of these. But the biggest thing is this pollution is the #1 threat to the global economy as civilizations collapse and there's famine, floods, fires. So, must we change?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, you knew that. Okay. Can we change? So, I have another cute clip. So this won't work because you're not going to hear it, but I'll play it and then I'll tell you what you're seeing. I'm playing you 7 seconds from Back to the Future, where they need 2.1 gigawatts of power to power the DeLorean. And remember, this movie was like very, very old, and they were looking at year 2015. So let me try. Just. Yeah, okay. So how much power is 1 gigawatt? So this is just music, don't worry about it. You can read the script. How much is 1 gigawatt? But what is it for real? Now was in the Act for Nuclear Energy, which is one of the possible renewable resource solutions. That's a whole other program. New York City uses 11 billion watts per day. So a gigawatt is 1 billion watts. So New York City using a lot of power. Imagine throwing rooftop solar on all of the flat roofs in New York. Imagine all of the parking lots in Florida and just building a rack and putting solar panels on the rack and powering the shopping center and the grocery store and shade for your car. If you're like me, you go up and down looking for any drop of shade in the summer about your car. We can do this, folks. We can do it. So, wind is one of the things we can do. Worldwide capacity was projected to reach 30 gigawatts. We just saw that. The reality is we already exceeded that. And there's enough solar energy to switch gears from wind to solar. Can you believe it? Enough energy is coming out of our sun to power the whole world for a year. So why don't we do it? Well, we can. So in 2002, they thought we would grow 1 gigawatt a year by 2010. Ha! We actually did it by 17 times, and in 2020, by 132 times. So it's like, wow, that is just amazing. What's going on? Well, if you look at the top of the chart, $80 is the top of the chart on the top left. And if you look at the bottom right, a kilowatt hour has gone from $79.40 all the way down to 20 cents. And I was on a seminar today with En-ROADS. I already have to talk about En-ROADS. And somebody quoted it's down to 8 cents now. So it's like you can't not do solar. And I can talk to you about that too, because I put solar on my house the minute I moved to Gainesville. And I pay $35 a month for my electricity. And I have as much air conditioning as I want. So there. I also changed out all my light bulbs to LEDs. 1 gigawatt is 110 million LEDs, so I made my contribution to the world. I hope you'll help me with that. And my next thing I have to do is an electric vehicle. And they're doing it. So I need a time check. Where's Deb? Where are you, Deb? Can I take an extra 3 minutes, 4 minutes?
Yeah.
Yes? Yes. Okay. If you need to go or leave or whatever, that's fine, I understand that. I want to try switching screens, which worked when we were testing. I want to show you something, and Kyle is, are you a full ambassador now, Kyle?
Not quite.
Not quite. Yeah, one more step. Okay, I'm in my third of 8 classes to become an ambassador. And I think it's kind of a really amazing thing to look at. This is global solutions. Did it come up? No. Oh. Okay. Why wouldn't it come up? Maybe I have to stop the. Did before? Is it there now? No. Bear with me, folks. I'm really good on Zoom. Let's shrink that. I got 2 more screens to try. Okay, I'm not going to waste your 3 minutes on that. This is a simulation program where you can make changes, and it's extremely deep in terms of if we were to price coal, or price natural gas, or price oil, or if we were to increase nuclear, or we were to increase renewables, or we were to plant more trees, or we were to stop burning trees, or we would electrify all of our cars or electrify our buildings, we could bring the planetary business as usual temperature down. The goal, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, is you hear 2 degrees centigrade. We are at 1.25 degrees centigrade now, above 1750. It's too hot. There's too many catastrophes. I think we really have to not even aim at 2, because it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And the ideal was 1.5, so degrees centigrade, and you have to double it to get Fahrenheit. So business as usual, just so you can see what you can't see, would be 3.6 degrees centigrade by 2100. or 6.5 degrees Fahrenheit by 2100. We'll be 70 feet underwater by 2100. Now, it won't happen that fast, but we'll be on track to bury the Earth. It'll be Noah's flood again. Okay? And I apologize that the technology didn't work, because it would have been cute to show you. Let's see if I can get back to the slide. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So, can we change? Yes, we can. So let's take a look at the next few slides, wrapping it up. How? Well, we joined the Paris Agreement. Yay. And the Paris Agreement is where the 1.5 and 2 degrees were identified. So that's good. And this is very exciting. This is another thing for Democratic Women's Club to take on. There is a national cities race to zero, as in zero emissions by 2050, which means electrifying the city, electrifying the buildings, greening the buildings, electrifying transportation, finding ways to sequester carbon. You don't have to, you don't have to just stop everything, but you can take carbon out of the air. So there's a national race to zero. It's kind of a competition, and they have a really, really good format for it. And now there's a Florida race to zero, and Gainesville is not in it. So, right. So, if you remember also of the League of Women Voters, which there may be some crossover here, I know I am, the National Natural Resources Committee is looking at finding how to tell our commissioners we want to join that race to zero. And the principles of it are, 1, this is an emergency, we must act now. 2, we got to get to 1.5 degrees centigrade or below. 3, we must be inclusive with all communities in our community. 3, we pledge to get to net zero by 2050. 4, we're going to have an interim 2030 target, and we're going to publish our action plans to get there. So, I know that you've been involved somewhat in the Solar Bluff and the Archer Solar Array projects, and there's a lot of interest in racial justice. So, there's a lot of colliding things going on. However, there's room. We don't have the will at GRU yet, or our commissioners, to say this is really serious, it's really an emergency. We need to join the Florida cities race to zero. Let's see, Miami did it, Orlando did it, Tampa did it, and St. Pete did it. So, come on, we can do it. I think we're better than them. I do. I really do. Okay. Another thing you can do is divest your portfolio, if you have one, of energy stocks. I did that when I realized I could, and I actually was an investment manager, and I was always socially responsible, but I hadn't thought through which pieces of socially responsible I really wanted to attend to. And when I realized, I've got to keep the fossil fuels in the ground, it cleaned my portfolio out. I have no extractive industries, and I have no concentrated animal feeding operations, because those are just plain cruel. But you can see this, don't just trust me for the moral part of it. The blue is the S&P 500 from 2010 till 2020, and the red is that just pulling out the energy sector. Not a good investment. And this is the extractive industries. And what's exciting is look at all these companies making a commitment to go 100% renewable. Now, is it some of the greenwashing? I don't know, maybe. But the noise is there. And of course, we've got the kids. The kids. If you ever watched Greta on a TED Talk, she's absolutely right. This is an emergency, and we're not acting like it's an emergency. She's very compelling. She doesn't care who she offends, and she offended former president of our country. They are demanding a better world. They have a right to a better world. These are your grandkids, my grandniece and nephew. So we need to support them. And here's what we do. And you already know this. This group already knows it. You're going to join using your voice, your vote, and your choices in how you consume, what you do at home. And you're going to fight for the kids' future, for their community, their world, and actually I think for us too, because we're going to live a long time. So somebody asked me just to throw up some action plan ideas, and if we had more time I would have you generate them, but these are some of my favorite. really watch where you're driving, how you're using fuel, including plastic. Join something else you're already active. Amp up your political involvement. Very important. They actually do count who tells them what. Look at your house, and you can Google carbon footprint, and there's a lot of calculators online where they can tell you what you can do to reduce your carbon footprint at home, and that will save you money. So I insulated LEDs, energy efficient air conditioner, smart thermostat. The temple put in a smart thermostat, LEDs, and insulation. We cut the temple's July bill from $900 to $400, half. It's worth the investment. Research what Gainesville's doing and support it. There's a really good book, easy peasy, you can pick and choose, How to Prepare for Climate Change. It's by David Pogue. He just gives you what I've given you, and then he talks about what you can do at a personal level. So he's not exhorting you to go right to your congressperson or anything. He's telling you what kind of insurance you should have, what kind of supplies you should have, what you should do to your house. If you're thinking of moving, what you should look at, where you go. He lists 10 cities he likes for where to go. If you're going to stay, what you should do to your house. So it's good. And I know they're oldies but goodies, but Al Gore's movies really still say it. It's just still as urgent as it ever was. And again, because some of us are over 60, watch your health carefully. Take care of your asthma. So, in closing, I'm going to pass the hat. It's possible that you don't know yet what you want to do because you haven't had time to think about it. But I'm hoping something struck some of you that you would want to share. So I wonder if I could just kind of point at tables. And if you've got something that will stick with you from this talk, you invested an hour, which I thank you for. Is something going to stick with you, or did you get an idea of something you think you're going to do, or something you're going to stop doing? So, this table, anything from this table?
Oh, I love how she points at me. Honestly, we put in a better air handling unit in our house last summer when we had to, but one of the things we looked for was an energy efficient one, and our bill came down.
Okay, we have an endorsement for energy efficient air conditioning. Thank you. How about this table? Something you might do, something that stuck with you, something you might tell someone who is not here tonight that struck you. Anybody? Oh, okay.
The Florida City's Race to Zero.
Florida City's Race to Zero.
I am the chair of that committee you're talking about, and so.
Oh, Megan, you look so different on
I didn't
real
that
life.
fast.
Oh my gosh. I'm your fly on the wall.
So
Oh,
we will talk.
we don't talk.
So I will make sure it gets there in August.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so that's great. I met Megan Ennis the other day and I didn't recognize her either. The little gallery boxes don't do it.
Well, I'll make sure that I'll have the research done where you can share with me anything you
Oh
know.
my gosh, done. Oh, that's worth coming out and having, well, thank you. Okay, great. How about go back to this table? Something that struck anybody. Don't be shy.
I think I would like to look into solar. I didn't realize it had gone down that much.
You would like to look at solar. Yeah, Solar Impact is a really good company. Probably shouldn't make advertisements like that, but they really, really are good. How about this table back there? Thank you. Anybody? One person.
I do have solar and did that through the league with voters when they were encouraging that, working on a co-op kind of thing. But also, my next car is going to be electric.
You can sign, you can go on, very good, you can go sign my next car's electric vehicle pledge. I did that. And it kind of makes sure you do that. Thank you so much. Okay, yes.
I actually work for a company that works with utilities all around the world. And I look at power plants, coal, all the power plants. Companies are going towards
Renewables.
But I also look at ExxonMobil and all, because they're into oil, they're into plastics. And, I don't know how to get these companies, you said speak to the legislator. I don't know how to get them.
Okay, so we have a question to be answered. Thank you. The question is, These are very big. I work in the industry. I see that it could be difficult. I'm not sure what to do. Why don't we chat after a little bit? Okay, 2 from this table. Very good.
I feel like I've done everything I know how to do right here. I mean, we recycle everything, compost the whole bit, and we have an electric vehicle, we have solar, and I'm just really worried about my children and my grandchildren in California. And I don't know how to help there.
Okay, so we have another question. How do I help the folks in California? Okay, thank you. We probably should have a program on inroads, folks. Probably should. Okay, table that clear. Something that's going to stick with you, something that moved you, something you're going to do more of, something you're really happy you've already done.
I would like to work on getting rid of subsidies, taxpayer subsidies to the fossil fuels.
Okay.
That is a great cause, and we should be able to do that with some pushing.
With some pushing, we should be able to reduce or eliminate the fossil fuel subsidies. Thank you, Deborah. How about the table there, blue tablecloth? The Shir Shalom table in Peru.
You mentioned about being born in 1949. Since you're a month younger than I am, I can relate. But I didn't realize that I lived with the best climate when I was a child. And when people say now, we got through it when we were kids, we played out in the yard when we were kids, I now have a response, a real response.
Wow.
It wasn't that hot then.
Wow, thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you. That's taking something and sharing that now with other people they need to know. Okay, 2 for that table. Here.
So I have started doing something that normally I never thought about, cutting the emissions, is when you, at the gas station, you know, you shut the engine off. Well, you shouldn't sit in the car with the engine running because you are putting it out into the air. So I stopped doing that.
Okay, actually, when you're sitting in line at the bank, you can also turn your car off. Thank you. How about white tablecloth here? Anybody? Anything that struck you that you're going to tell somebody that wasn't here tonight? Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I've been separating plastic from all my dishes and all my food and stuff. And the plastic's this high, and the food is down there. And I would like someplace to send the plastic to be recycled or something, but I think that's something that should be done. Although I'm also trying to change, so I'm not using plastic bottles for washing machines, so, but get paper.
There you go. Okay, so you're going to be really watching your personal carbon footprint and using something that is not made from fossil fuel, even though fossil fuels are used to make everything. I mean, we can't just turn it off now and then starve to death. But okay, good. You folks?
Yeah, I think citizens for writing letters in support of solar projects locally and nationally. I did one a couple of months ago, and I thought nobody would read it. And actually, coincidentally, I talked to somebody who's the agent of the solar producer that he actually read my letter. And I thank him for writing it.
So,
more of that.
Thank you. So continuing to support solar. Solar United Neighbors is active in Gainesville, and they do put co-ops together. So they get 40 or 50 homeowners. A committee of homeowners interviews all the solar companies who bid on this massive amount of solar, and then they help you get through all the permitting and everything. So you can do that. And there's a chapter here, Solar United Neighbors. Last table.
I'm gonna get with her and, talk about how we need to, the fossil fuel industry getting subsidies. I mean, they're so profitable as it is, it's ridiculous, it's pathetic, that has to stop. I mean, and nobody's thinking about it, people don't really talk about it, although, you know, but, I mean, we should all have little committees where, like, you know, exchange ideas.
Well, there's other places. Okay, so all right. So you've got a connection. Yes, ma'am, Michelle.
Well, I just was saying about joining committees, join the Democratic Women's Club, and join the Gainesville. Yeah, I'm just saying.
It's a place to start.
But I do have a couple of things that, and I've been researching, and especially since we heard you read your speaker, I'll notice I use plates and dishwashers and disposables. But also in my, because I am very active and a lot of my customers are Democratic women. That's a base for my little cafe. And we've gone into more and more vegan, plant-based research, not just for my cafe, have more vegan options, but also at home, eat a little bit less meat. It also has to do with my doctor saying eat a little less meat. But, it's about global warming too. And then I wanna do the electric car pledge. That
Yeah.
sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, I want to take the electric vehicle. My next car will be an electric vehicle. Thank you all for playing. Yes, one more thing.
I do want to say, we currently have an electric vehicle, and everybody, I mean, it's totally electric, and we charge in our, garage. We have, my son put in he's an electrician and put in the thing. And everybody asks us, well, how much is your electric bill going up? And, it goes up, went up $5.
Okay, it costs $5 to run your electric vehicle. Right. Super. Thank you all. So, just to close it out. Oh, more. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to mention, race pit stations. I've been multimodal for a while, but I have to admit during the pandemic, I've not been back on transit. I'm gonna get back on transit. And if you haven't heard, starting October, persons over the age of 65 and under the age of 18 can ride RTS free fare. So I'll be 65 next spring, and I'll definitely take advantage of that.
I have 2 bus passes that I bought before I was a U.S. student. I will get with me and I will give them to you until you're 65. Because you're gonna have to pay really, I have nothing, I didn't throw them out because I paid for them, so they're yours.
No, I mean, thank you very much, but the student fees, they support our system very well, but, you know, everybody has to pay a little cost to sell the health.
Yeah, and what's interesting, and then I'm gonna absolutely stop. Thank you for letting me run on. There's a resource called Rewiring America. It's a data geek, looked at the sources of energy in the United States and then broke it down into the thousands of places energy goes and how we could rewire America and electrify America. And we could do it within 5 to 10 years. And it means replacing everything that runs on fossil fuel, mostly transportation, because and also converting energy producers. It's a very exciting video because it's possible. It would take a World War II kind of collective effort, but it could be done, and it would create so many jobs for so many people, and it would save the planet. So, okay, thank you all very, very much. I appreciate your attention and your questions.